Hello, Happy Valley. Today's video is all about color theory and color schemes. We'll be discussing color schemes that you probably are already familiar with, like primary, secondary, tertiary, warm, and cool. And then we're going to learn about some new ones, like triadic, split complementary, or double split complementary. Without further ado, let's get started. The majority of this presentation is going to merely be a refresher for you. But there's going to be some new schemes that you learn with this. So I'd like you to, at least take notes on this and understand the different color schemes because we will be using this throughout our semester. So the beginning of this is, again, going to be a refresher. And an achromatic color scheme, this is something that we necessarily won't use, but you still need to know. If you have the word a in front, it usually means no or without. Chromatic meaning color, so achromatic, without color. Monochromatic, mono stands for one. You have a single color, a single hue, and then you have many tints, tones, and shades that run in between that. So a color scheme of one color. Primary colors, these are the three main colors from which all are made from: red, yellow, and blue. On a color wheel, they make what I call a positive triangle. They are equally positioned with three spaces in between. Think of threes. We have that triadic formulation. It's everywhere in art. So you have red at the top. At the left-hand side, you'll have yellow. Right-hand side, you have blue. There are three colors in between each one of those spaces. Secondary colors make up what I call a negative triangle. They are also triadic in formulation, and they create a downward-facing triangle on the color wheel. And so they are placed in between those primary colors. So you have red, yellow, blue, then in between red and yellow, make your first secondary of orange. In between yellow and blue, make your secondary color of green. And then in between red and blue, meet purple, which is your third secondary color. Two primaries equal a secondary. Simple art math. On the color wheel, you'll divide that in half, so you have warm colors on one half of the color wheel, the other half you have cool colors. There are 6 for each color scheme. Warm colors are associated with reds, oranges, and yellows. We associate those with heat, with warmth. And then cool colors we associate those with night, with coolness. You've got greens and blues and violets. What's interesting is that yellow-green is considered a cool color, whereas red-violet is considered a warm color. Most likely because the green dominates in the yellow to green combination, and then red dominates in the red-violet combination. So it's more warm on one side, the yellow-green is more on the cool side. Complementary colors are any two colors that are directly opposite each other on the color wheel. Every color has a complement. Now in Art 1, we studied just the primaries and their complements. So primaries and secondaries and their complements. Red, green, I always told you guys to think about Christmas. Then you have yellow and violet. I mentioned any kind of sports teams like the Ravens or the Vikings or Planet Fitness. And then orange and blue. Of course, I'm a big fan of the Oklahoma City Thunder, so I mentioned those. But there's also like the New York Knicks, the New York Mets, and any kind of things that help you remember that. But now I want us to add in these tertiary colors and their tertiary complements. So noticing any color directly across from one another on the color wheel is a complement, and they contrast. So you're using contrast in this. Here's where we are going to gain some new color schemes, some new ideas. So you have a triadic formulation, and this is a contrasting formulation. or any three colors equally spaced from one another on the color wheel. Equally spaced. So here you have red, orange, 3 spaces become yellow, green, 3 more spaces become blue, violet. These 3 are working triadically, evenly spaced. So primaries are triadically spaced. There's 3 spaces in between them. Same with secondaries, 3 spaces in between them. So as long as there are a 3 space in between them on the color wheel, this is known as a triadic color scheme. Analogous is one that I taught during Art 1, but it's not really fully understood. So let's go back to it again. Analogous. These are harmonious colors. They are harmonious because they share a common color. All right, so it's just 3 colors right next to each other on the color wheel, sitting next to one another. And they usually have a common thread, or they do have a common thread of one color. So for this picture here, we have blue, blue-green, and green. They are carrying one common thread, or they share. We got blue, we got green, and then we got blue-green together. All right, so they are sharing together. They are harmonious. A split complement. So if we look at this, the complement here, yellow and violet. Split, meaning that one key color is yellow, and the color on either side of its complement. Okay, so our key color here is yellow. Then on the sides of violet, we have red violet and we have blue violet. That is a split complement. So if we had red as the key color, then the split would be yellow-green and blue-green. If we had blue as the key color, then the split would be red-orange and yellow-orange. If we had green as the key color, then the split would be red-orange and red-violet. Then we get into even more, the double split. So it's taking those key colors and going to either side of them. So for this image, we have yellow and violet. So we go to the sides of each. So for yellow, we would have yellow-orange, yellow-green. We'd have red-violet and blue-violet. If our split was red and green, then we would have red-violet, red-orange, yellow-green, blue-green. So wherever that is, both sides are splitting. And the last thing I want to talk about is value or intensity of a color. So this is a color wheel. Yes, we see that, but I want to talk about value. So value is how light or dark a color is. So to get different values when we're mixing colors or working with colors, we would add a white to something to make it lighter to get a tint. Or to make it darker, we would add black to it. Those are referring, white and black, that's referring to the value. How light that color can become, how dark that color can become. Then we have something called intensity, or sometimes referred to as saturation. So how bright, how intense can that color become to how dull can that color become? And you do this by adding or subtracting gray from something. So we have our picture here of green in that center. We've removed all of the gray from it. It is very bright. It's neon almost. It's full of that. And then on the other end, we've added a lot of gray tones to it. So we've dulled it and we've taken away a lot of that saturation of that color. So you can have, when you're developing color theory and color schemes, you can take these colors and create color schemes from them by adding values to them. So for instance, if I was developing a color scheme of my primary colors, I would have red and blue and yellow. Yes, those are the main colors, but then I can also add colors to that palette by creating different values of reds and blues and yellows, or by creating different intensities of those reds and blues and yellows. And so there we get different types of color schemes being developed. But if we look back at it, it is a primary color scheme.